How's it going? Welcome back to RCS Live. It is Nate Mumford, Director of Sales Engineering. As always, still quarantined here at my house in Danbury, Connecticut, home of the John Oliver Memorial Sewage Plant. That's right. I'll keep saying it because it cracks me up every time. How's it going? How was your Thanksgiving here in the States? Hope you were good. Hope you're happy and healthy and all of that good stuff in this crazy time that we live in. I know we had a couple weeks off because of Thanksgiving here in the States. And so we'll do a couple more of these up until Christmas time here. And then we have some really cool stuff planned for 2021. Yes, it's crazy. I just can't wait for this year to be over, to be honest with you. So, listen, I thought for today we would just kind of dive right in, talk about Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. It's been a while since we talked about it. And talk about all the cool ways we can back up your system because let's be honest, it is 2020. And it's not like 2021 is going to get any better in regards to cryptoware and all that other stuff going on in the world. So thank you, V, for checking in. Hello, Di, as well. Now, a couple housekeeping things here. Don't forget, we'd love to see your work from home photos. So if you are working from home like me, we want to see your setup. We'll give you some RCS goodie bags as well, too, for your efforts. So you can just kind of direct message us or whatever it is. And speaking of direct message, of course, you can submit your questions, comments, concerns, dinner recipes, all of that good stuff. You can comment below right here. You can always direct message us. I always like to say that after these RCS lives, we always go back and forth on the direct messenger and talk about some of those things on, what's going on in your world, for example. So if you have any questions, it doesn't pertain to Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery, but if you have a Zetta question or a G-Selector question or a Zetta to go or Selector to go or Revma or whatever it may be, definitely feel free to comment below or in there, and we'll be glad to help you out as well. Going through my housekeeping list, beta users, do not forget, we have G-Selector 490 that's coming out. We also have Zetta 5.20.1. Both of those, just so you know, I know I've done those feature enhancement videos. They're on our page. They're also on our archive, rcsworks.com/rcs-live. Those are the high-quality videos. You can always go to the blogs, too, for a breakdown of those videos as well. We pushed those. I'm going to go and safely assume both these to the next year. Let's be honest. You're an engineer. You're on the air. The last thing we want to do is throw an update for you on Christmas Eve, for example. So we're well aware of that. So usually we try to kind of push these to after the holidays too. So just so you know, those are probably coming down in the next year. Thomas, hello. Thank you for checking in. Appreciate it. Any questions, let me know. Thanks for checking in, Thomas. And we did the archive videos. We did all of that good stuff working from home. Beta users, let's dive right into Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. That's what I have right here. Now, the first thing is, remember, just like Zetta to go, this doesn't require an app. We're not downloading anything. We're not going to an Android store or an Apple store and downloading this. This is a true URL. Differences between Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery and Zetta to go. Zetta to go is linked to your Zetta file server and needs a VPN or some type of security so you can access it from the outside world, right? That's the idea of Zetta to go is I'm working remotely. I'm not in the studio. Zetta Cloud, similar but slightly different. Remember, Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery is built on Amazon Web Services. We follow all the best practices and securities, which means, if you have a cryptoware issue, for example, obviously we have, it's on Linux. The files we send over, the audio files, are not prone to go to be combined in those cryptoware files. So there's an extra layer of security on top of maybe your redundant system by having some type of backup server on your location, right? And Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery doesn't need a VPN. We give you a URL. We give you a login information. You can add more users, of course, but the very first user. And so what we do is you have a username and a password. You log in. That has access to your instance of Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery. And that Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery is linked to your local Zetta. So let's talk about how that works. Like, what exactly does Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery back up? And for that, I have this. Did I close it? Wow, I must have closed it. All right, that's fine. Let's talk about the essentially the rotation here. of how that works. So we have essentially you're working, operating normally in your database, right? Daily stuff. I'm talking about creating schedules, adding audio, changing metadata, SQL backups. All of that is sent to the cloud. Now, normally we have some type of linear kind of backup redundancy, right? Either a hot spare on your machine, on your local network, or maybe a extra server that is site replicated from your local Zetta at your transmitter site. All that is fantastic and great, and we highly encourage you to have that. But what happens if the physical location, right, your physical studio, something happens to it, or in the case we've seen a lot in 2020, cryptoware, malware, whatever you want to call it, unfortunately, it's here. It's not going anywhere. The hackers know it. It is what it is. So the idea there is you want to, when you know that you have some kind of issue, now it could be severe, it could be just a theory, it could be a threat. You know that as an engineer and an IT person, you got to take those cables and just unplug it. You just have to immediately unplug it. And then, of course, what happens to your content? And that's where Zetacloud-based disaster recovery comes into play. Now, Zetacloud is going to be sitting in idle in the cloud. Remember, you have your username, you have your password, and again, you're not downloading anything. It's not an app, so we're just going truly a URL, in this case, us.zetacloud.com. I have my credentials that are linked to my Zetta, and that's what this is right here. So, of course, I have Zettas everywhere. This is back in my office in New York, in White Plains, at our RCS headquarters. That's where this Zetta is here. It's linked to this Zetacloud-based disaster recovery right here, okay? So again, anything. It could be as small as a change of the segue chain type, right? If I'm my local Zetta here, and if I just go over and let's just say like I just change this change type to a pause, stop, or whatever it may be, that's going to be reflected. That's a change. That's a physical change to my environment and my schedule. That's going to be site replicated up to the cloud, and it's going to reflect here on my Zetacloud-based disaster recovery, right? So at that point in time, I'm really not doing anything physically. I'm not manually pushing something. I'm not going and making sure that things are there. They're all in tandem and operating as is, right? So you're not worrying about that. I'm just opening up my phone here to check all of my good comments and texts and all that good stuff. Great. And so we can do is essentially, you don't have to worry about it. It's a safety measure that's in there that you know it's working, okay? So then we have disaster strikes. Now, what is considered a disaster? It's really whatever you think it could be. We've seen all these crazy examples. We've seen fires, floods, as I said, cryptoware, again, giving your chance for your IT and engineering staff to unplug the systems and really giving your team a chance to assess the situation, to understand what actually is going on without losing the on-air product. So you would grab your phone, right? So here's what you would do. We get an attack, something happens, boom, okay, great. We got to go off the air at the local site. All right? Well, in that case, I'm going to go to my phone, right? So I'm going to pull up my phone. I'm going to go to the us.zetacloud.com. It could be your phone or your laptop or your tablet, your Android, whatever it may be. And you're going to log into your Zetacloud. Remember, this is going to be sitting in idle, just kind of waiting for you to kind of just, it's just getting all your changes, but it's not physically playing anything out because it's disaster recovery. So at that point in time, we go in here. There's a module. The top left, we have modules. There's the system monitor, okay? And this system monitor will allow you to essentially go and find your station and activate it, right? So I can make this nice and big if I want to, but for right now, I just want to show you one quick example. There's the RCS Hot AC. This is showing me the fact that it's online. I have one player. You can have redundancy players if you want. And what you would see here essentially is instead of redeploy, it would be deploy. That's the idea, right? Your sequencer is there just kind of sitting, waiting and idle for you to deploy. That's the idea. So I deploy this station from here. I can close my system monitor. At that point in time, I have control of my Zetacloud-based disaster recovery and my Zetacloud, I'm going to say DR for short if you don't mind. So Zetacloud DR, are we on the same page here? I got to save my voice a little bit. So Zetacloud DR. At that point in time, you are essentially ready to go. The sequencer is online. You queue up to wherever you want to be in the log itself, hit that play next or that play button down here, and you are good to go. You are online. And now we're operating in the Zetacloud DR environment, right? So let's talk about some semantics here. Great. I'm live, Nate. What does live mean? What is the live playout? And for that, we go to the config and the stations. Now, be aware, this is going to be whatever you want it to be. There is an encoder that is built into Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery. And that encoder is going to allow you to essentially put that URL wherever you want it to be. So here's just some generic details, my RCS hot AC. I can then go over here to my players, and I have a bunch of players. I can have primary, secondary, and all that good stuff. But essentially here, I have an option of where am I actually playing or pointing this encoder to. Now, in my circumstance, I have Revma. That's our content delivery network. The idea, of course, you can stream, you can take multiple endpoints and duplicate URLs for different bit rates, all that stuff. It's very, very cool. So what I did is I kind of reversed my Zetacloud DR encoder to be a client, so then I can go and push it to Revma and then have Revma take point and send out all the streams to wherever I want it to be, right? So next level stuff because, I have all that good, tools with Revma and all that good stuff. If you're interested in that, let me know. Pose a question below. I'm more than happy to cover that too. So we have here essentially, this is the URL, right? That is the URL. That is what's currently playing. That's my encoder. Boom. That's the good stuff. I'm doing 96 kbs AAC. I can change that if I want to right here. Again, the encoder is built into Zetta cloud-based disaster recovery, okay? So this is a pre-configured step. When you get the onboarding process for Zetacloud DR and you're talking with the onboarding team and the support team, these are questions we want to know. What's the bit rate do you want? Where are you going to broadcast? What type of feed do you want? All of that good stuff. We pre-configure this, right? We don't want to do this. It's an insurance policy. You don't want to break your leg and then call up your health insurance and say, hey, I should probably buy some health insurance. It's not how it works. So this is a pre-configured step, right? At that point in time, we have this pointing to whatever location you want. I've heard a lot of engineers who have, newer transmitter sites that have a transmitter that can take a secondary URL as a playout. That's a great source. I've had some users put it on a server or a machine in the rack room or in the transmitter site, and that gets relayed. You can do that too. I've heard some very interesting scenarios. I have never seen this myself, but we had one client that has Zetacloud DR. They have two, I guess they're competitors. They're like friends with their competitors, which is really cool and great to see. They're allowed to, in case of emergency, they can broadcast from both each other's studios. They have an agreement there. And so essentially he called me and he goes, well, could we go and put this on some type of computer on that stream, put that stream through a board, put that board through a transmitter site as a redundancy? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it follows through. We got to double check some things. But yes, you could probably do that if you wanted to. So you can see where that URL will give you a lot of flexibility as an engineer on where you want to put that. Cool? So let's just briefly talk about operating in Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. Yes, it is module-based. Yes, it looks very similar to that of Zetta to Go and your local Zetta, and that's because it is. Yeah, same team. So essentially what we got here is we have the layouts at the very top. You can have a new layout, save layout. You can change layouts. You can see I have a secondary layout here. We can set all stations to all modules. So, for example, if you have a production layout with, let's say, 5 stations, you can switch between the stations from here. That's in there. Modules themselves, we have the on-air module. That's what you're seeing in the very top. We have the playlist module. That's the bottom left here. And we have, the library on the bottom right. The voice tracker we'll get to. System monitor, we already showed you. That's essentially an administrative section to essentially deploy or take down Zetacloud-based disaster recovery sequencers. And then we have the hotkeys, which is down here. Now I have the hotkeys tabbed, by the way. You might notice that. See how I have these tabbed here? So you can dock these just like you would in regular Zetta. right? So I can take the hotkeys, click and drag it up. I can move it over. You can see here. I'll put it towards the right-hand side. Boom, just like that. And now I have, docked and floating. I have essentially the hotkeys and all that good stuff there. So I'll close this for right now. And over here, you'll see I have my playlist on the bottom left-hand side. And I want to show you one quick, really, really cool tool here. So you have Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. COVID hit, right? We tried to find unique ways with the Zetta team to really enhance your experience and try to give you some tools in regards to remote workflows. So one of the things that we did, if you have Zetacloud based disaster recovery and you have Zetta to go connected to your local Zetta system, what you can do is you can obviously have users who are remote voice track via Zetta to go, but that requires a VPN. And of course, we have colleges and universities who, let's be honest, I'm not going to give my students a VPN access to my college network, or we just have some users who have tight network restrictions and all of that good stuff. Or maybe you have a one employee that you need to have a temporary fill-in, right? Kind of for a week or a couple days. I want to voice track and give them access, but I don't really want to give them access full time, right? Well, with Zetacloud-based disaster recovery, remember, we don't need a VPN, which is awesome, because then what we can do is open up our Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. As you can see here, I have my playlist, and I can switch from my library module to my voice tracker module, which, guess what? That's exactly what it does. It's a voice track. And what I can do here is load up, let's say, 8 o'clock at night, because that's where I know I have my empty voice tracks. And at that point in time, I can go and click on a transition, voice track, and I'm good to go. That will load it up accordingly. So you can see here, I have a Zayn and Ed Sheeran. I can click on this element right here. That's the voice track. It's going to, if I have my station highlighted, it's going to sync back over to my voice tracker. You can see there's an option right here, which will essentially keep the playlist and the voice tracker as long as the stations are the same. It will keep it in sync as well. Got any questions on here? Let me know. John, thank you for checking in as well. Appreciate it. So I can essentially load up this voice track here. It's going to be the same heads and tails. I can record on here. I want to make sure that I'm not doing copyright stuff. I'm not. So you won't be able to hear this, and that's intentional. So you can just see, that's record my elements on here, right? So what I did is I went ahead and I just quickly recorded a voice track for you, because it takes a couple seconds, because obviously I'm going from the cloud, recording it in there, saving it once it's saved in the cloud, and then gets sent back to your local Zetta via site replication. And that's where this guy comes back into play. So this is my local Zetta. I'll make this nice and big for you so you're not confused. And you'll see here that I just had 9 o'clock, or 9 p.m. rather. I went ahead and already did a voice track just to show you what it looks like. You can see it's got a timestamp in there. It's Nate Mumford voice track. RCS Hot AC. I did it at 9:41 this morning. If I double click on here, you can also see that I have my metadata voice track window. And this will respect, just so you know, it will respect your marks analysis. The same applies to go. I got a lot of users who call in and say, what about my trim ins, my trim outs, and my segue points? By default, when you put these in the system, it's going to respect those defaults. So you can see here, there's my trim in. There's my segue point, which defined by that transition, just so you know. And then there, of course, is the fade out and the trim out as well. So that's that element. And of course, it is available in my voice tracker. You can see right here, there's my RCS Hot AC for my voice tracker. That's in there too. So what you can do, I'm not going to say my changes. So what you can do is, let's just say you're midday person. I hate to do this because it's obviously COVID and there's awful things going on, but I'm going to speak reality here with you. Okay, so you have a midday person, right? And they essentially have they're come across somebody with COVID or whatever it is. They have to quarantine. Thanks for calling me there. They have to quarantine, right? They can't come in. Now, they can always use Zetta to go or whatever it is, but let's say you want to have another talent quickly voice in for whatever reasons. What you can do is you can give them a login, email, password. You can even do it however you want to do that. That's your infrastructure. And then you can essentially have them log in to Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. They have access to their station. Remember, this is tied to your local Zetta, because we do have site replication involved here. So what you can do is if I'm the voice tracker, I log in, I have access to here. I know I'm supposed to voice track. So I'm supposed to voice track 8 to midnight. I can click 8 o'clock here. I can record my voice tracks. You'll notice, by the way, there is an option for you to save and go to the next voice track if you wanted to. The key thing here with Zetacloud based disaster recovery and voice tracking to your local Zetta market is we operate on empty voice tracks for right now. Okay. You're going to need empty voice tracks in your log. Of course, it's pretty easy if you have empty voice tracks. You can drag and drop them in here. I always try to have my hotkeys have a couple unique things like comments or a couple macros. You can see here I have an empty voice track. So if I'm a PD, what I'd probably do is prep that log for my user to voice track. At that point in time, if I'm a talent, I just go into my Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. I see all the empty voice tracks here. I record it here, do my left-right transitions, save it, go to the very next one here. See, navigate to the next voice track, and just keep going on my merry way. That's what I would do here. At that point in time, as a talent, I save my work. I log out here at the very top right. And then if I'm a PD, you'll see that these voice tracks will land here in my local Zetta, right? And so, so at that point in time, I have my voice tracks, I have my talent, life is good, right? And I also have, of course, redundancy in place with Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. All my assets are saved, audio, schedule, all that good stuff is also saved as well. When the disaster strikes, we're operating on Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. We will take whatever schedule you have and apply it to here. Remember, it's disaster recovery. It's giving your engineering and IT team a chance to assess the situation. Whatever logs you have are going to be in your Zetacloud. For whatever reason, we do have a copy log function here. So you can copy logs from one day to the next day. You can do that. So if you're in a real pickle, you can always do the Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday type of ordeal and replicate a quick playlist on the fly. I will tell you, though, that, listen, we're here for you at RCS with support and sales and engineering and all that good stuff. If you find yourself in I keep saying in a pickle, if you find yourself in a jam, in a tough spot where you have to run disaster recovery, but it might be a longer time frame for whatever reason, reach out to us. We're going to help you and do that. We have a lot of, unique tools that we can probably help you with. Maybe you try to find some kind of, G selector on a VM or something and get you a music log that way and all of that good stuff. Speaking of which, for G selector, friendly reminder, don't forget to take your data exchanges and backups. We're talking about disaster recovery here, right? We're talking about cryptoware and all that stuff, sending things to the cloud, having a offsite source of all your data, your SQL backups, right? Don't forget, as part of your selector and G selector contracts, if you do have G selector, you have data exchanges. What's a data exchange? It's an email that has your database attached to it, right? It's very simple. You go to G selector, go to the very top left, file, data exchange, send. You want to send current data. That's your entire database. You can do station specific as well if you want, but you want to do an entire database, send it to yourself. And then what happens is after you send yourself a data exchange, it sits in an email as a defined period of time, right? Usually it's 7 days. But what we do, RCS, is kind of as you know, we do oops backups for G selector as kind of a safety precaution here. What we also do is take that backup, right? And whatever the most recent backup is associated with your call letters, we will save a copy in a disaster recovery data exchange recovery console. I think so many long words here. It's the data exchange recovery console. That's where we save it, and we keep your database there. So if you get into a jam, you can call us up. We can send that database back to you. You can restore it on a system, and then you have your G selector database or your selector database ready to go as well. That's free, by the way. It's part of your selector contract. So just so you know, you have that. I know the last time I did this, I had about 3 people send me an email and saying, how do I do it? What's going on? You need your RCS credentials, and then you just email it to yourself. Very, very simple. If you want a step-by-step instruction, I have a little couple screenshots that I send out that are just stock. I'll be more than happy to send them your way and explain to you how to do those too. So feel free to comment or go from there too. So V, you are very correct. You can. There's never such a thing as being too prepared. I completely agree. So yeah, let's go in here. So let's see. We did the voice tracking. We did the data exchange. We did the playlist module. You can see that's here. We talked about ways of having some more advanced things. If you have to do a prolonged period of time, we are here to work with you. That's the idea. And of course, the final step in all of this, restoring your database. So the idea in CryptoWare, we'll use that example. You unplug your machines, go to your phone, you essentially start the sequencer, queue it up, play, we're good to go, right? Great. At that point in time, we have our SQL backups in the cloud. We then restore those SQL backups on your local machines. We want to make sure the naming structure is the same because obviously if we're looking at, let's say, Zetta FS1 is your file server, we want to make sure when we restore it, that's the same machine name, right? So we have the same, replicating the same environment. At that point in time, when we restore the SQL backups, we see everything, we connect everything, we essentially turn off Zetacloud-based disaster recovery, we turn off the sequencer, and then we operate back as normal as we would in your local Zetta environment. So it's really, really, really cool stuff. So any questions? I'm going to do a last call for questions here. In case you have anything you want to talk about in regards to Zetacloud-based disaster recovery, of course, G-Selector data exchanges, or anything else. And yes, there's a lot of really cool features here with Zetacloud-based disaster recovery that you can do, but we're talking about cloud-based disaster recovery right now. That's what this is. When we're talking about 2020, 2021, we're talking about Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. And in case you're wondering, yes, we do have users right now that are currently utilizing Zetacloud-based disaster recovery. Luckily, knock on wood, so far there hasn't been any true emergencies. But we've had a lot of users who also interpret this for daily maintenance. As part of your contract, you get the ability to kind of turn on, test it, check it, all that good stuff. So if you're doing, let's say, maybe an upgrade to Zetta 5.20.1 and you just want to test it, make sure that things are working, want to test your engineering site, your transmitter site, well then yeah, absolutely. We can turn on and we can do the upgrade and then turn it back off and you're good to go. That works too. So we've had a lot of users who are kind of doing some maintenance and testing it as well. So last call for questions here. Thank you so much for checking us out. Don't forget, we're doing this every Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to continue this into 2021. I probably going to take a couple breaks here in maybe New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I can't remember what day that lands here, but as I get closer to the holidays, I'll probably just take one of those 2 weeks off as well, just so you know. But I'm already working on some extensive topics for 2021. I'm really excited for this. Trying to, again, my idea here is to spread the idea of RCS knowledge, because how do you know how to do something if no one told you it existed in the first place, right? Last call for questions, comments. George, thank you for checking in as well. I will sign off and see you next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Keep it here for our Facebook page for the archived videos. We break them down by product, just so you know. So go to the Facebook, go to videos. You can see a whole list of product videos there. Also, the RCS blog for a detailed explanation of this and other past videos. rcsworks.com/rcs-live for the high-quality videos as well. And I'll try to do a better job of doing events like this so you can set reminders for you, too, every Thursday to know what topics we're going to talk about the next Thursday. So thank you so much. Hope you and your family are happy, healthy, and especially safe. And I'll see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time for RCS Live. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.